Hey guys, tonight's story starts in that cursed slice of night when the world isn't asleep, but it isn't awake either. The walls groan, the mice are whispering about your bad decisions, and every single relative you share a bed with has somehow migrated onto your half. The hearth is nothing but a graveyard of ashes, and your only light is a candle stub that looks like it's about to retire. Welcome to the forgotten hour between sleeps where nothing happens and somehow everything does. But before you get too cozy, take a second to gently tap that new hype button YouTube just added. It really does help little guys like me push through the algorithm, and take a second to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy this strange little corner of quiet storytelling. It's strangely comforting to know who else is drifting off with us around the world. Now get comfortable, let the day melt away, and we'll drift back together into the quiet corners of the past. You open your eyes, not because you're rested, but because someone outside is yelling about a goose. A goose, singular, as if one bird could justify this much drama before dawn. You stare at the rafters, which creak like they're considering retirement. The air is cold in that way that seeps into your bones and starts weighing down your thoughts before you even formed them. It's still dark, not the thick velvet dark of midnight, but the smudged, reluctant sort. It hints something might be coming, though it won't be good. You wonder if it's morning or just last night. No one knows, not even the sun, who you're certain has hit snooze again. You shift under the blanket. Scratchy wool, possibly made of regret, and instantly regret it. Someone's elbow jabs your rib, possibly your brother's, possibly your grandmother's. Space is limited and boundaries are conceptual. You hold your breath and try to decipher whether the body against your leg is human, goat, or the heap of winter laundry. Either way, it smells like feet. The fire is out, naturally. No one fed it after supper, and it's sulking in the hearth like a teenager asked to sweep. You consider getting up to poke it back into life. But that would mean leaving the warmth of the collective body pile and crossing the frozen stretch of floor known locally as the Valley of Bad Decisions. Your toes are already numb and might be permanently lost. You give one a wiggle to confirm its existence. Nothing. You mourn it briefly. From the corner, a cough rattles the silence. It's your father, a sound more reliable than any rooster. He's been coughing that same dry, dusty cough since the harvest, as if he swallowed a field and is trying to bring it back up, one grain at a time. The sound is a grim metronome, counting down the seconds until the day officially begins. You pull the blanket higher, a futile attempt to build a fortress against the inevitable. Suddenly, the goose yelling intensifies. You hear a thud, followed by a string of curses that could curdle milk. Sounds like your neighbor, Old Man Hemlock, has finally lost his battle with gravity. Again, you can almost picture him, tangled in his own fence, shaking a fist at the sky while the goose honks triumphantly. It's the closest thing to entertainment you've had all week. You close your eyes, trying to steal a few more moments of not quite wakefulness, but it's no use. The day is already seeping in through the cracks in the walls, bringing with it the familiar scent of damp earth, wood smoke, and a faint, lingering aroma of despair. You hear your mother start to stir, her sigh a heavy, resigned thing that says more than words ever could. The floorboards creak beside you. Someone, brave or foolish, has ventured into the cold. You hear the scrape of a pot, the slosh of water. Breakfast is being considered. Probably porridge. It's always porridge. A thin gray gruel that tastes of obligation. You wonder if there will be honey today. There probably won't be. Hope is a luxury, and the bees went on strike last autumn. Your stomach rumbles, a traitorous sound in the quiet. It doesn't care about the cold or the porridge. It just knows emptiness. You press a hand against it, willing it to be silent. The body next to you shifts, and a foot, definitely a human foot this time, lands squarely on your face. It's cold, calloused, and smells faintly of chicken. Probably your younger sister's. You don't push it away. At this point, it's just another part of the morning ritual. The sky outside is turning a bruised shade of purple. Not quite day, but no longer night. The goose has fallen silent, its point presumably made. The world holds its breath, waiting for the sun to finally clock in for its shift. You take one last, deep breath of the stale, shared air under the blanket, a cocktail of sleep, sweat, and family. It's not pleasant, but it's yours. The day hasn't truly started yet, but it's already exhausting. You sigh, a perfect echo of your mother's, and decide to face the porridge. The rooster hasn't crowed, and you're not sure he ever will again. He's been moody since Candlemas, and you're starting to suspect he's unionizing. Last week, he only crowed after being bribed with a handful of barley. Yesterday, he just screamed once and went back to bed. This morning, so far, nothing but silence. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks at absolutely nothing, then barks again just to confirm it. Another voice joins the goose yeller, higher pitched and definitely insulted. The goose honks in reply, defiant and utterly unrepentant. You hear a splash from the well, then some choice cursing. You roll over slowly, trying not to wake the entire ecosystem crammed into the family bed, and succeed only in shifting someone's knee deeper into your hip. You let out a noise that might have been a whimper, or maybe a prayer. This isn't a new day. This is the in-between, the sacred stretch of time when the world is neither asleep nor awake. It's a time where no one should be conscious, but everyone is, and sort of resents it. The hour where thoughts just wander sideways, where dreams have finished and the guilt starts seeping in for things you haven't even done yet. This is first waking. It tastes like ash and old porridge and the breath of the person next to you who apparently feasted on onions in their sleep. You sit up just enough to peek over the edge of the blanket. Shapes shift in the gloom. Your mother is still snoring like a blessed ox. Your youngest sibling, the one who collects beetles and questionable ideas, is curled up with a rag doll that's missing half its face. You once asked what happened to the other half. He just looked at you and said, "Fire and betrayal," then refused to elaborate. The baby is drooling quietly on a lump of wool that may or may not be a sock. You choose not to investigate further. The roof creaks again, louder this time, as if trying to get your attention. You stare upward and make a deal with it. Hold out until spring. And you woe and tell anyone about the hole in the back corner that drips directly into your uncle's ear when it rains. The roof doesn't respond, but a mouse scurries across the beam, its tail twitching like it disapproves of your negotiation tactics. You blink slowly. The candle stub on the stool beside the bed is just that, a stub, and a pathetic one at that. You light it anyway, with the flint your father leaves tied to the leg of the bed, in case of midnight bandits or aggressive pies. The flame sputters, it wheezes, and then flickers to life like an old man settling in to gossip. You hold the tiny light up and glance around the room. It looks the same as it always does in this hour. Haunted and slightly confused. The walls lean slightly in one direction, like they've finally given up resisting the wind. Shadows dance and stretch. The loom in the corner looks like a skeletal monster waiting to pounce. The pile of laundry could be a sleeping bear. Everything is both familiar and terrifyingly new. You hear another sound, a soft thump, from the kitchen. It could be your father getting an early start, or it could be a goblin looking for leftover stew. Both are equally likely. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, your feet hitting the cold, splintery floor. The chill shoots right up your spine. It's a reminder that the day, whether you're ready for it or not, is about to begin. The fire needs to be lit, the water needs to be fetched, and that rooster, union or no union, needs a serious talking to. Maybe today's the day you start your own union. The union of people who just want 5 more minutes of sleep. Membership would be huge. You take a deep breath, the air thick with the smell of wood smoke, damp earth, and sleeping relatives. It's the smell of home. You stand up, stretching your stiff back until it cracks. Time to face the day, the chores, the cranky goose, and the silent rooster. Another day in the in-between, slowly giving way to the morning. And as you step into the gloom, you can't help but smile a little. After all, you have a deal with the roof to uphold. The hearth is just ashes and ghost heat. A pot hangs over it, blackened and mysterious. containing either yesterday's soup or something that crawled in during the night to die dramatically. You decide not to check. Outside, the noise continues. What started as a simple goose chase has now escalated into what sounds like a full-blown turf war. You hear someone shout, "Unhand me, you feathered demon," followed by a squawk and what might be a splash. You can just imagine the mud, the damp shoes, the poor choices, and the long, slow sigh of someone realizing they're going to have to explain a new bruise and a missing boot. You smile, maybe for the first time today. Back inside the house, it's not much quieter. Someone turns over in their sleep and mutters a name you don't recognize. You really hope it's just a dream. You stand up, finally, slowly, like someone rising from the grave, more out of a sense of duty than any real desire. Your knees crack in protest. Your shoulders whine. The floor is exactly as cold as you feared it would be. You shuffle over to the window, which is really more of a hole with ambitions, and peek through the rough cloth that's nailed over it. The sky outside is thick and bruised. The trees are still. It feels like the whole world is holding its breath. You don't know why you're awake. Not really. No one does. Not the priest who says this is a divine pause meant for prayer and quiet contemplation. Not the midwife who uses the time to mend clothes and mutter about men. Not even the old crone by the well who insists this is when the dead visit and demand soup. All you know is that you've always woken up like this, just like your father did, and his father before him, and probably some long-lost ancestor who once stared into a fire and wondered if he was the only one who felt like the night was broken into two distinct pieces, and he was stuck in the crack between them. You shiver and pull your cloak tightly around your shoulders. It smells like a mix of herbs and animal, a scent that's both familiar and wild. You grab a crust of something hard enough to question its origin and chew on it thoughtfully, watching your breath fog in the flickering candlelight. Outside, the goose lets out one final, triumphant honk, and you find yourself nodding in acknowledgement. Whatever this hour is, whatever name it goes by in the hearts of old women and on cold floors, it belongs to you now. And to the goose, apparently, but mostly to you. The hearth is cold. The cottage is even colder. This isn't the kind of chill that just nips politely at your toes and then leaves. No, this is the kind that wraps around your spine like a wet eel and settles deep into your bones. You can see your breath hovering in front of your mouth like it is trying to escape your body and find somewhere warmer. The fire gave up some time during the night, burning itself down to a quiet soak. And now, the only heat in the room is radiating from the tangled human disaster lumped under the main blanket. You shuffle past them, careful not to disturb the delicate balance of elbows, knees, and general snoring hostility. Your father's arm is thrown across your sister's face. Your cousin is somehow sleeping upside down. You step outside, closing the rickety door as quietly as you can. The air is sharp and clean. The world feels immense and empty, and for a moment, you feel like the only person awake in it. This pre-dawn quiet is a strange kind of gift. It's a space where you don't have to be anyone's child, anyone's sibling, anyone's neighbor. You can just be. You can listen to the silence that's not really silent at all. You can hear the rustle of a mouse in the thatch, the distant hoot of an owl, the slow, deep breathing of the world itself. You walk towards the well, your bare feet numb against the frozen earth. The rope is stiff and cold, but you manage to lower the bucket and haul up some water. The splash it makes when it hits the surface sounds impossibly loud in the stillness. You drink straight from the bucket, the water so cold it makes your teeth ache, but it's refreshing. It washes away the last cobwebs of sleep and makes you feel alive, keenly aware of every sensation. You think about the stories the old crone tells about this hour. She says the veil between worlds is thin, that you can hear whispers from the other side if you listen closely enough. You stand still, straining your ears, but all you hear is the wind moving through the bare branches of the oak tree. Maybe the dead are sleeping in today. Or maybe they just don't have anything interesting to say. You prefer your own company anyway. The first hints of dawn are starting to appear on the horizon. A faint line of gray and pink that promises a new day. It's a slow, reluctant sunrise, as if the day isn't quite sure it wants to start either. You know that soon the cottage will stir. The symphony of snores will be replaced by grumbles and yawns. The foot will be removed from the butter. The daily chaos will begin. Someone will have to relight the fire, fetch more water, and figure out what to do about the goose situation. That someone will probably be you. But for now, in this quiet, stolen moment, there are no demands. There are no expectations. You look back at the small, sleeping cottage, a little lump of warmth and humanity in the middle of the sleeping landscape. For all its flaws, its snoring, and its feet in the butter, it's home. You know that many people fear this time of night. They see it as a time of vulnerability, of loneliness, of being confronted by your own thoughts. But you've come to see it differently. It's a sanctuary. It's a time to reconnect with the part of yourself that gets lost in the noise of the day. It's a reminder that even in the deepest, darkest part of the night, there is a quiet strength, a resilient peace, and there is always the promise of a new dawn, a new beginning. You take one last deep breath of the cold, clean air, letting it fill your lungs. The sky is getting lighter now, the colors deepening from gray to soft lavender and rose. The goose, your companion in this early hour, is silent now, probably resting after its great victory. You smile again. This strange, broken piece of the night is your kingdom, a kingdom of cold floors, stubborn fires, and sleeping families. And as you turn to go back inside, ready to face the day and the foot in the butter, you feel a sense of quiet ownership, a deep and abiding peace. This hour, with all its cold and its quiet, is yours, and it's more than enough. I have to pee, not just a little, but one of those sincere, urgent needs that makes your teeth ache. But the thought of it, the thought of actually getting up, of stepping outside into that frost-crusted dark, of fumbling with the latch, with fingers that have long forgotten what circulation feels like. It's enough to make me retreat back into the shadows, like a guilty raccoon. And that's not even the worst part. The outhouse is behind the shed. The shed is behind the goat pen. And that goat, he's definitely awake. He's been waiting. I've seen it in his eyes, that malevolent glint. So, no. Instead, I'll just stare at the wall and pretend not to hear the mice. They're up, of course. They're always up, always busy. Scratching and scrabbling in the thatch, in the corners, behind the sacks of grain. I swear they're discussing me. I can just picture one of them, sitting upright on its haunches, little arms crossed, judging my entire bloodline. They're so much louder than they have any right to be. I try to ignore them. I really do. But it is hard not to take it personally when a mouse sounds genuinely disappointed in my life choices. The blanket I've got wrapped around my shoulders is stiff. It's stiff from smoke and constant use, and it smells vaguely of old stew, sweat, and a lifetime of not making particularly good decisions. I clutch it tighter and carefully step over the dog. He's not my dog, by the way. He's just a village dog who showed up last autumn, decided this was his new home, and has refused to acknowledge any argument to the contrary. Now he's sprawled out by the door like a furry, immovable sack of defiance. I try not to trip over his tail, but the floorboards under my feet creak with a specific, loud volume of betrayal. Of course they do. One of my siblings groans in their sleep from the other side of the room. Another one lets out a sigh so dramatic, so full of adolescent angst, it probably echoed in the next village over. I freeze, holding my breath, listening. Silence. Well, silence returns, except for the ongoing mouse orchestra and the wind, which is knocking politely at the shutters, as if to remind me that yes, it's still absolutely horrible outside. I give up on going back to sleep for now, and tiptoe toward the hearth. I don't have any real hope of rekindling warmth, but just standing still seems to make the cold sink deeper, right into my marrow. The ashes are glowing faintly. I can see one ember, maybe two, clinging stubbornly to life, like a couple of old men refusing to leave the tavern at closing time. I find a stick and poke at them, hopefully. They just hiss in protest, completely unimpressed by my feeble effort. I mutter something unholy under my breath and retreat again, defeated by both fire and circumstance. This is the hour no one ever talks about. It's that strange time between sleep and sleep, between the deepest dark and a dawn that isn't quite here yet. This is the hour of regret, of a vague gnawing hunger, and of intense bladder negotiation. It's a silent, internal debate. I don't have to go outside, but I could. But I really don't want to. But what if it's worse later? But it's already terrible now. It's a debate I'm destined to lose. No matter which side I choose, I give up and sit on the edge of the bed. I call it a bed, but it's more of a platform of shared suffering and communal body heat. It's where we all pile in. My little brother, asleep beside me, murmurs something about fish and then kicks me squarely in the ankle. I consider kicking him back, a brief, satisfying fantasy. But then I remember he bit me last week during a heated disagreement over a pillow. And I'm not entirely sure my tetanus is current. So, I sigh instead, a deep, world-weary sigh that could probably power a small windmill. No one notices, and that's fair. In this hour, we're all just fighting our own tiny, silent battles against the cold, the dark, and our own bodies. You glance toward the window. There's no light yet, only the pale suggestion that maybe somewhere far away, the sun is tying its sandals. The sky is a smear of gray and indifference. You hate it a little bit, but also you understand. You wouldn't rise either if you didn't have to. Your mother snorts awake briefly, rolls over, and resumes snoring with renewed commitment. The baby whimpers and settles again, drooling audibly onto a shared pillow that smells like hair and secrets. You've memorized every sound in this cottage. The crack of the drying beam, the wheeze of the old stool, the way the wind sometimes moans through the thatch like a ghost who regrets marrying into this family. Nothing is new, and everything is slightly worse than yesterday. You think about the rooster. Where is he? Why hasn't he screamed yet? Maybe he froze solid. Maybe he finally got tired of being ignored and moved to a monastery. Maybe he's on strike. It wouldn't be the first animal in this village with strong labor opinions. The oxen once staged a sit-in for better hay. It lasted for hours and ended with someone bribing them with apples and a fiddle tune. Outside, something thumps. Probably the goat, possibly the goose. You hope it's not the pig again. She is clever and mean and still hasn't forgiven you for last spring when you accidentally fed her a mitten. You only had one and your hand never quite recovered. You stand again, walk to the door, touch the latch, consider your life, step back. Not yet. You'll wait until someone else breaks first. It's the silent agreement every morning. Whoever gives in and goes outside becomes the designated hero and defrosts the water bucket. You are not a hero. You are a reasonable person with a healthy fear of moonlit frost and your own bladder-esque betrayal. You return to the corner near the hearth, curl into the blanket, and pretend you're a log. A warm, unmoving, inanimate log. You breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, and try not to think about the icy grip around your ankles. You try not to think about the goats. You try not to think about anything, really. The mice are still whispering. You hear one sneeze, and in that moment, as you close your eyes and drift into the in-between, somewhere between prayer and insult, between the cold floor and your brother's snoring, you accept the truth. You light a candle stub. Not because you need to see, there's nothing worth looking at anyway, but because you feel weird sitting alone in the dark. It just feels strange, even if half your family is snoring right behind you and the other half is likely awake, pretending not to be. The flame sputters like it resents being summoned at this hour. It casts just enough light to remind you how dusty everything is. You watch it wobble, nervous and small. Almost like it's scared of what it might reveal. And you are, too. The shadows stretch and crawl around the room, as if they've been waiting for you to notice them. They're not threatening, not exactly, just nosy. One of them looks like a hunched man with a really big nose until it shifts and becomes a ladle hanging on the wall. Another one, up by the ceiling, twitches every few seconds. Like how the goose that roams the yard probably did bite clean through the neighbor's leather boots. It was probably old leather. and the mouse you saw scurrying under the floorboards earlier. It's definitely not plotting your downfall, orchestrating a tiny rodent uprising. And the most important story you tell yourself, you're fine. You're totally fine. It belongs to Widow Merrill, who sleeps alone next door with her 3 cats and one enormous sack of dried leeks. She claims they're for winter, but everyone knows she secretly uses them as conversational leverage. Oh, you think you have problems? Try sleeping next to 1,000 leeks. The cough continues, pauses, and then resumes, as if it's narrating a story only she understands. You hear one of the cats yowl in protest, followed by a soft thud. It could be a broom handle hitting the floor, or it could be a very determined, furry opinion being expressed. Suddenly, somewhere nearby, a pot crashes to the ground. The sound is sharp, violent. You freeze. The candle flame jumps, startled. Then, an absolute, profound silence follows. The kind that spreads out like a heavy blanket and presses against your eardrums. In the whole house, no one moves. No one gets up to investigate. That's the rule. During this part of the night, this sacred, strange time, you let things fall. You let things clatter. You let them live or die on their own terms. Because if you intervene, you risk waking someone. And if you wake someone, they might make you do something about it. And worse, they might talk to you. The absolute last thing you want right now is a conversation. So you pull your thin blanket tighter, feeling suddenly like a child again, half afraid of the dark, and half convinced that it's more honest than the light. Your mother always said the night has layers, like an onion. Evening is for meals and songs and bickering over who used the last of the firewood. Midnight is for dreams, for stillness, for husbands muttering about taxes in their sleep. But this time, this in-between slice of dark is different. It's quieter than it should be, yet more crowded somehow. It feels like time itself doesn't know what to do, and is just loitering around, waiting for the sun to show up and give it some direction. You remember once, years and years ago, waking up at this exact hour. You crept out of bed and found your grandmother sitting at the kitchen table. She had a single candle, just like this one, and a piece of bread with a hunk of cheese. She didn't look surprised to see you, not at all. She just cut you a slice of bread, handed you a piece of the cheese, and said, "Sometimes the soul gets fidgety." Now, all these years later, sitting here in the flickering light, you finally understand. Maybe not the soul part, but definitely the fidgety part. Your own soul feels incredibly fidgety tonight. It's a restlessness that starts deep in your bones and works its way out. You try to pinpoint it. It's not anxiety, not really. It's not sadness either. It's more like a surplus of quiet. The day is so full of noise, of tasks, of people needing things. You're a daughter, a brother, a cousin, a neighbor. You're a fixer of leaky roofs and a chaser of rogue chickens. Your identity is a collection of verbs: doing, helping, fetching, carrying. But here, in this pocket of darkness, you're just you, and it feels unfamiliar, almost unnerving. The silence forces you to listen to the sounds you usually ignore. The creak of the floorboards isn't just wood settling, it's the house breathing. The drip of the faucet isn't an annoyance. It's a tiny, persistent clock, ticking away the seconds until morning. Was someone angry, or just clumsy in the dark? You imagine a whole story unfolding in the other room. A late-night argument, a secret rendezvous, or maybe just someone trying to get a drink of water and tripping over their own feet. You'll never know. And that's the beauty of it. In the daytime, every mystery demands a solution. But at night, mysteries are allowed to just be. They're part of the texture of the darkness. You lean back in your chair, the wood groaning in protest. The candle has burned down a little more. The wax is pulling at the base, creating a miniature, shimmering lake. You watch a moth flutter dangerously close to the flame, its papery wings beating against the heated air. It's mesmerized, drawn to the light, just like you are. Maybe that's all this is. A kind of primal instinct. We're all just moths, trying to find a little bit of brightness in a world that's mostly dark. The memory of your grandmother comes back, stronger this time. You can almost smell the rye bread and the sharp cheese. She had a way of saying things that made no sense and all the sense in the world at the same time. The night is for mending what the day has broken, she'd say. Back then, you thought she meant mending socks or patching trousers. Now you realize she meant mending your thoughts, patching up the little tears in your spirit. This fidgety feeling, it's the soul trying to mend itself. It's sifting through the day's events, discarding the unimportant stuff, and trying to make sense of the rest. It's untangling the knots of conversations, replaying interactions, and second-guessing decisions. Should you have been kinder to the merchant in the market? Did you say the right thing when your sister was upset? These are the questions that only surface when the world is asleep. The candle flickers violently and almost goes out. You hold your breath, willing it to stay alive. It recovers, the flame standing tall again, defiant. It's a small victory, but it feels significant. You feel a strange sense of kinship with this little flame. Both of you are just trying to hold your ground against the overwhelming darkness. You close your eyes, but you can still see the light of the candle through your eyelids. It's a warm, orange glow. It's a reminder that even in the deepest quiet, you're not entirely alone. There's the snoring of your family, the coughing of the widow, the secret life of the house. You're part of a sleeping, breathing ecosystem. You're a single, quiet note in a much larger, silent symphony. The fidgeting in your soul starts to subside. The restlessness gives way to a kind of weary acceptance. This is your time. This is the hour of the fidgety soul. It's not a time for answers or solutions. It's a time for questions. It's a time for simply being. You realize you don't need the candle to see. You need it to be seen. To have one small, steady point of light to anchor you in the vast, formless dark. It's a signal to yourself, a declaration that even in the silence, you are here. You are awake, and you are, for now, okay. The morning will come soon enough, with all its noise and demands. But for this brief, stolen moment, there is only you, the flame, and the honest, nosy shadows. And you wouldn't trade it for anything. You'll sit here until the flame dies or the sun rises, whichever comes first. A creak above your head suggests someone in the loft has shifted. Could be your uncle, could be the rat. You've given up trying to tell them apart by sound. Someone lets out a slow, drawn-out sigh. The kind that says, I'm awake, but also don't talk to me. It's answered by the sound of teeth grinding and a soft fart, which you choose to interpret as unrelated. You step carefully across the room and sit on the stool next to the window, though calling it a window is generous. It's a hole in the wall with a bit of waxed cloth nailed over it, but it lets in air and sound and the occasional beetle with no respect for boundaries. You lift a corner and peek out. The sky is still dark, but in a different way than before. It's less like ink, more like watered-down wine. The stars are fading, slow and shy. A thin slice of moon lingers like it forgot something. Down the lane, you can just make out the shape of Griever's chimney. Smoke curls from it. Of course it does. Griever, the baker, never sleeps, or at least not when people are supposed to. He always wakes early to curse at yeast and scream at the dough like it insulted his mother. You've seen him slap a lump of rye so hard it could have sued. Right now, he's probably elbow-deep in flour, humming the same off-key hymn he sings every morning. It's comforting in a way, knowing someone else is up, even if it's Griever. His routine, his predictable rage, it's a constant. It means the world is still turning. You tear off a corner of your crust from earlier and chew it absently. It's dry, but not unkind. The chewing helps. There's something about bread at this hour. It doesn't ask questions. It doesn't mind the silence. You think about slicing some cheese, but the floor creaks in that warning tone that says, don't push your luck, and you decide to sit still instead. It's a delicate balance, this quiet time. One wrong move and you shatter the peace, inviting the day before it's ready. Behind you, your cousin mumbles something about frogs. You don't look. It's better not to. Everyone dreams strange during this time. You once dreamt you married a fish, not a mermaid, a fish. It gave a speech at the wedding about duty and algae. You woke up hungry and slightly insulted. You wonder what a dreamfish would even say, or maybe it would just complain about the water temperature. The candle burns low. You tilt it slightly to make the wax drip evenly. A small act of control in a world that offers so little. You've heard women whisper about it at the well. Voices low, eyes squinting like they're remembering something they wish they didn't. You've heard old men mutter about it by the ale barrel, claiming they used to use this time to sharpen knives or their wits, depending on the week. Even the priest once mentioned during a sermon that sometimes the Lord whispers in the dark. He said it like a warning, but it doesn't feel like a warning to you. Not always. Sometimes it feels like a secret, a shared secret with the fading moon and the angry baker and everyone else awake in the world, staring into the dark. It's the time when you're most yourself, before you have to put on the face you wear for the day. You're just a person in a room with a crust of bread, listening to the world slowly wake up, and for now, that's enough. You watch the light change, the wind-dark sky turning to a soft gray. Soon, there will be noises, duties, people. But not yet. For a few more moments, the world is just for you. You're not alone. You never are. The walls may be thin, the roof may leak, and the bed may host more limbs than a battlefield surgeon's tent. But solitude is a luxury you've never known. Even now, in the middle of the second night, the wakeful watch settles over the village like a woolen blanket, scratchy, awkward, and heavier than you'd like. You can feel them, the others, awake, just like you, in that quietly stubborn way that refuses to be called insomnia, because no one has invented that word yet. They call it restlessness, or the Lord's hour, or maybe just the I'll sit here and stare into the fire until I forget what I was thinking about time. You don't know what it is exactly, but it's not sleep, and it's not day. It's something else entirely. A pause, a breath, a shared stillness that everyone denies having noticed. The long sigh of settling walls as the house breathes around you. A rooster somewhere, prematurely ambitious, lets out a confused croak and then gives up, deciding the sun can wait. You wonder what time it is, not because it matters, but precisely because it doesn't. The clock is a church bell, and the bell is silent. For now, time is suspended. You sit, the candle flickering low, casting long, dancing shadows. The bread you had earlier is gone, and you can feel it all. The hush, the hum, the peculiar warmth of solitude in a room full of sleeping people. Even the shadows seem quieter now. The cough from the corner has stopped. Even the mice in the walls seem thoughtful, pausing their nightly scramble. You don't know how long you sit like this, just being. Eventually, the dark will begin to change again, shifting from inky black to a bruised purple. But for now, this moment is yours. Yours and everyone's, but mostly, it feels like it's just for you. You consider getting some water. Your throat feels like a dried-out riverbed, where mice have been staging tiny, dusty rebellions. The water bucket is across the room, by the door. You know, without even looking, that it has a thin, mean skim of ice on top. To get a drink, you'd have to crack it with your knuckle. A sharp, cold pop that would shatter the silence and almost certainly wake your uncle. And your uncle, when woken by a sudden pop, immediately assumes it's bandits or the apocalypse. Last time, he grabbed the hearth broom and stood guard for an hour, defending the family from an imaginary siege. No, water is definitely not worth the diplomacy that would follow. You swallow dryly. The thirst, you decide, is just another character in this strange, silent play you're living through. The night is a stage, and every sensation, every sleeping breath, every creak of the floorboards is part of the performance. This feeling of being awake when the world is asleep isn't loneliness. It's a different kind of company. You are part of a secret society, a club of the sleepless, who keep watch without knowing why. Out there, in the other houses, someone else is probably staring at their own dying fire. Another person might be listening to the wind, counting the snores of their family, feeling that same profound, shared, quiet. It's a strange comfort, this invisible connection. You are all holding the night together, passing passing it from one wakeful person to the next, until the first light of dawn relieves you of your duty. You are the guardians of the pause between yesterday and tomorrow. In this stillness, you are not just a farmer, a son, a villager. You are simply a consciousness, floating in the deep, dark ocean of the night, aware of the other small lights of awareness floating nearby. There are no words for this feeling, no songs, no stories. It just is. And in its own way, it's beautiful. You pull your blanket a little tighter. The rough wool, a familiar anchor. The candle sputters one last time, and the darkness deepens. But you're not afraid. The night is not empty. It's full of a quiet, breathing presence. And soon, the sun will rise, and everyone will pretend they slept soundly. But you'll know better. In the low stone house across the village, the one with smoke that always smells faintly of burned raisins, Griever, the baker, is poking his coals. You can hear the distant clang of his peel against the side of the oven, followed by a low curse and a soft thud that sounds suspiciously like dough hitting the floor. He's been up since long before you lit your candle. Maybe he never even went to bed. It's possible he sleeps standing up, like a perpetually disgruntled horse. Whatever the case, he's already angry at the rye, and from the sounds of it, the rye is already winning. 2 huts down from Griever's, the midwife is awake, too. Her window glows dimly, a flickering orange. It's the kind of light that whispers secrets, that says someone is sewing something they don't want anyone else to see. Undergarments, perhaps, or a doll. Maybe a pair of socks shaped like a curse. You've met her before. She has that look in her eyes, the kind that comes from seeing the inside of too many people and finding none of them particularly impressive. You're almost certain she sees ghosts. You're also pretty sure she's friends with them. You lean your head back against the rough timber wall of your own hut, tilting it just enough to hear the wind snake through the tiny gaps in the thatch roof. The cold is less harsh now, less aggressive. It is more like a dog that is too tired to bark, but still wants you to know it disapproves of all your life choices. Your feet are tucked snugly beneath you, your blanket wrapped around you twice. Once for warmth, and once for emotional support. The candle's flame on the small table trembles, as if it, too, is fighting to stay awake in these quiet, early hours. He lets out a snore that sounds like a deep, philosophical disagreement with the very concept of gravity, and then he settles again. He won't wake for anything less than a thunderstorm or someone dropping the soup pot. And even then, he'll just claim he was dreaming of a great war where everyone shouted the names of vegetables at each other. Your mother, on the other hand, is quieter. Her breathing has a distinct rhythm, the kind of rhythm that tells you she's definitely listening, even while completely unconscious. You suspect she has a sixth sense, a finely tuned ability for knowing exactly when someone is about to steal a spoonful of jam from the jar or ask a profoundly stupid question. It's a comforting, if slightly unnerving, presence in the stillness. And then, of course, there's the blacksmith, somewhere near the edge of the village, probably curled up under his anvil, like a dragon guarding a hoard of scrap metal. He's snoring. It's a loud, steady sound, like the world depends on him, keeping time with his sinuses. You've heard it before, echoing through the trees on windless nights. Some of the more superstitious villagers claim it's the forest spirit. Others, more practical, say it's just his nose. Either way, it's dependable. It's a constant, rhythmic bass note to the village's quiet morning symphony. All these sounds, these lives stirring in the dark, they form a strange sort of music. The clang of the baker's peel, the whisper of the midwife's needle, the sigh of the wind, the rumble of snores near and far. It's the sound of a world waking up, piece by piece, person by person. You pull the blanket a little tighter, the wool rough against your chin, and you just listen. You listen to the village breathing. You wonder what Griever is so angry about this morning. Is it the humidity, the quality of the flour? Or is he just angry in general, and the rye bread is simply the unfortunate target of his permanent foul mood? You picture him in his stone bakery, flour dusting his perpetually furrowed brow, muttering insults at a lump of dough, as if it had personally wronged him. There's a strange comfort in his consistency. The sun will rise. The rooster will crow, and Griever will be furious with his baked goods. Some things are simply constants in this world. And the midwife, what secret is she stitching into being? Is it a charm for a safe birth, a poultice for a fever, or something darker, something woven with intent and a lock of hair? Her knowledge feels ancient, passed down through generations of women who knew the secrets of herbs and the language of body. She walks the line between science and superstition, a guardian of life's messy beginnings and endings. You respect her, but you also feel a small shiver when you think of her knowing eyes. She's seen too much to believe in simple fairy tales. Your own breath fogs in the air for a moment before disappearing. The candle sputters, its little life force waning. Soon, the sky outside will begin to lighten, turning from inky black to a bruised purple, then to a soft, pearly gray. The first real light of day will creep over the hills and spill into the valley, chasing the last of the shadows from the corners of your room. This is your favorite time. This quiet, in-between moment. It's before the chores begin, before the village square fills with the chatter of vendors and the clatter of wagon wheels, before the demands of the day pull you out of your warm cocoon. It's a time for just being, for listening to the heart of your small world beat. You think about the blacksmith's snores again. They say you can navigate by them on a clear night, a landmark of sound. A sailor has the North Star. A lost traveler in these woods has the blacksmith's nose. It's a ridiculous thought, but it makes you smile. In a world that can often feel chaotic and unpredictable, there is something profoundly reassuring about that steady, rhythmic noise. It's a sign that someone is home, that someone is safe, that the rhythm of life continues. Unbroken, the sounds begin to change. A dog barks somewhere in the distance, a sharp, interrogative sound. A door creaks open, then slams shut. The first voices of the day begin to murmur, low and thick with sleep. The symphony is swelling, adding new instruments, new melodies. The baker's cursing will soon be joined by the sizzle of breakfast. The midwife's silence will be broken by the cry of a newborn, and the blacksmith's snores will be replaced by the powerful, ringing strike of his hammer on hot iron. The world is waking up, and you are a part of it. You are a quiet observer, a silent note in the morning's song. You take one last, deep breath of the cool, still air, holding this peaceful moment just a little longer. You savor the feeling of the rough blanket, the sight of the dying candle flame, the sounds of your sleeping family. This is home. It's not grand, it's not perfect. It's a collection of grumpy bakers, mysterious midwives, and snoring blacksmiths. It's cold floors and thatched roofs, but it's real. It's a living, breathing place. And in this quiet pre-dawn hour, you can feel its pulse as clearly as your own. Soon, you'll have to move. You will have to add your own sounds to the morning chorus. The crackle of the fire you will build, the splash of water, the clink of a spoon against a bowl. The day will begin in earnest. But for now, you just sit. You sit in the dark, and you listen. And you feel profoundly, wonderfully, alive. You close your eyes, not to sleep, but to listen better. The village is alive in its stillness. Footsteps creak on distant floorboards. Someone else has surrendered to the call of their bladder, or their conscience. A shutter clicks open, then closed. A child coughs. A kettle hisses. Somewhere, someone mutters, "Just one more row." And you imagine the village weaver sitting in the dark, stitching cloth in quiet judgment into every single loop. It's strange how comforting it is, knowing everyone else is up to, not talking, not gathering, just awake, separate, but together. It makes the dark feel less like an absence and more like a companion. A shared understanding that sleep isn't the only way to rest. That sometimes, just sitting with your thoughts and really half-baked, and probably about soup is enough. A dog barks once, then again, in that particular tone that means fox, or absolutely nothing. You hear the rustle of hay in the barn, followed by a chicken making a sound like it just remembered it exists. The village breathes not in harmony but in a chorus. Everyone pretending to sleep, everyone failing. You think about what people do in this hour. Griever the baker likely bakes, the midwife sews. The priest, you assume, praise. Though you once caught him pacing in the cemetery, whispering to a headstone like it owed him money. Children dream and twitch and wake up convinced their own foot was a monster. The old woman in the corner house drinks something pungent and talks to her dead husband, who, according to her, never stopped interrupting anyway. And you just sit, you think, you wonder if it's always been this way. If people in castles and caves and distant cities also find themselves sitting at tables with crusts of bread and candle nubs, wondering why their minds won't shut up, you bet they do. You bet someone in a palace right now is wrapped in 15 layers of imported linen, thinking about goats for no reason at all. Your thoughts drift. They always do. To chores, to people, to that one time you said something unbelievably stupid and you're sure everyone definitely still remembers. To bread, mostly bread, if you're being honest. You wonder if it's too early to sneak a piece from the larder. You calculate the distance. The floor creaks are a problem. The dog might snitch. Your mother definitely will, even in her sleep. You stay put. The candle leans low, wax pooling like it's trying to escape. You blink slowly, not tired, but also not awake in any meaningful sense. The wall presses cold against your shoulder. The room breathes around you, full of sleeping bodies and wakeful minds. And somewhere, not far, another candle flickers in another window. You're not alone. You never are. You close your eyes again, sinking deeper into the soundscape of the night. The village isn't just a collection of houses. It's a living thing. Its heart beating in the quiet moments between breaths. You can almost map it out by sound alone. The heavy rhythmic sigh from the blacksmith's house. He sleeps like he works, with purpose. The faint, almost inaudible hum from the apothecary's window, where she's probably grinding herbs under the moonlight, concocting remedies for ailments that haven't even happened yet. Each sound is a story, a tiny thread in the vast, unseen tapestry of your shared existence. You feel a strange sense of belonging, not to a place, but to a moment. This specific, silent, secret moment shared by all the sleepless souls around you. You think about the concept of rest. For some, it's the complete oblivion of deep sleep. For others, it's the methodical repetition of a familiar task, the hands moving while the mind wanders. For you, right now, it's this stillness, this act of listening. It's a different kind of peace, not the absence of noise, but the acceptance of it. The wind whispers through the thatch of the roof, carrying tales from the fields beyond. A cow shifts its weight in a nearby shed, a deep and resonant groan that speaks of ancient comforts. These aren't interruptions, they're affirmations. They say, we are here. You are here. All is as it should be. You don't need to chase away the thoughts that flicker like the candle flame. Let them come. Let them dance. Let them be about soup, or goats, or that embarrassing thing from 5 years ago. They are a part of the night's chorus too. You shift in your chair, the wood complaining softly. The cold from the wall has seeped into your shoulder, a dull ache that grounds you in the present. Your mind, which was just now wandering through palaces and fields, comes back to this room. The soft breathing of your family, each a unique rhythm in the quiet orchestra of the house. You can almost feel their dreams brushing against the edges of your consciousness, fragments of flight, of feasts, of forgotten fears. It's a profound intimacy, sharing a space where guards are down and the raw, unguarded self is all that's left. You are a keeper of their sleep, a silent guardian in the hours when the world feels most vulnerable. And in turn, perhaps they are the anchors that keep your own wandering mind from drifting too far out to sea. This shared quiet is a fortress. You wonder about the future. What will the morning bring? The usual, most likely. The roosters crow, the smell of wood smoke, the clatter of pots, and the business of the day. This quiet, personal universe will dissolve with the first rays of dawn, replaced by words and work and the myriad demands of being alive. But the memory of this stillness will remain, a secret well of peace you can draw from when the day becomes too loud. You realize that this time isn't lost or wasted. It's essential. It's the time when the soul recalibrates, when the heart untangles its knots. When you remember who you are, when no one is looking, it's a gift, this wakefulness. A private audience, with the world in its most honest state. And as the candle sputters, casting long, dancing shadows that make the familiar room seem strange and new, you feel a sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the creaking floors, for the coughing child, for the dog that barks at nothing. They are all part of your story, and you are part of theirs. You are all just sitting in the dark, thinking about bread and goats and life, separate but together. The candle gives one last, bright flare, then surrenders to the darkness. But it's not dark. The room is filled with the soft glow of pre-dawn light filtering through the window, and you can hear it faintly at first, then growing stronger. The first stirrings of the morning, a new day is beginning. You chew a root. It tastes like the floor of the pig pen had opinions and then got boiled. The herbalist gave it to you with a smile that felt more like a dare than a friendly gesture. She said it would calm your humors, soothe your nerves, and usher you gently into the warm embrace of restful slumber. What it's actually done is coat your tongue in a thick layer of regret and make your teeth feel like they've just been thoroughly scolded. But you keep chewing, because she also said you have to work through the bitterness, and you believed her. You believed her mostly because she has a lot of jars with questionable contents and once successfully threatened the tax collector with a cup of nettle tea. It was quite a scene. You glance over at the little pouch she gave you. It's labeled Peaceful Night in handwriting that looks like it was scrawled mid-seizure. After chewing on this root for a solid 5 minutes, you're fairly sure that the main ingredient is just dried disappointment, possibly mixed with a hint of despair. This isn't your first attempt at her remedies, either. You tried the special tea last week. She called it Dreamweaver's Delight. It made your ears itch uncontrollably, and your dreams were filled with shouting sheep. Not peaceful, bleating sheep, but angry, confrontational sheep with very specific grievances about the quality of the pasture. It was less restful slumber and more of a woolly tribunal. Then there was the lavender sachet. You were supposed to stuff it under your pillow. Let the gentle aroma guide you to tranquility, she'd said, her eyes twinkling. You did as you were told, but while you were outside, relieving your humors as instructed, the goat got into the house and made itself comfortable on your bed. Now the goat smells absolutely wonderful, like a walking, bleeding air freshener, and you do not. The goat seems very pleased with itself, but your quest for a good night's sleep remains unfulfilled. So tonight, it's the incense. A thin, hesitant curl of smoke winds its way toward the ceiling beam, looking like it's searching for some kind of meaning in this drafty room. It smells like damp hay and someone desperately trying to cover up the lingering scent of an argument with a bowl of ancient potpourri. You breathe it in deeply, trying to convince yourself that it might actually help, that the herbalist's promises might finally come true. You tell yourself that maybe the fourth time is the charm. But it's really hard to feel mystical and connected to the universe when your nose hairs are staging a full-blown protest. The smoke creeps into the collar of your shirt and settles there, like it's trying to start an awkward conversation with your armpits. You can almost hear it asking, "So, come here often." You try to relax. You really do. You lie back on your cot, arms crossed over your chest, like you've just been respectfully embalmed for a very somber but affordable funeral. You stare up at the dark, hulking shapes of the rafters. A mouse scurries along one of the beams, pauses dramatically as if for effect, and then vanishes into the shadows. You can't help but wonder if it's the same mouse from last week, the one that made direct eye contact with you, then boldly stole the last crumb of your bread right off the table, like it was making a very personal point about your place in the food chain. You're not entirely convinced the herbalist didn't send it as some kind of furry, judgmental messenger. Your grandmother, of course, has a very different perspective on these late-night struggles. She insists this is a sacred hour. She says it with her eyes closed, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug of something that smells suspiciously like mushrooms and pure defiance. She calls this time the space between breath and waking, a moment when the soul can finally stretch its legs. You, on the other hand, Call it the time when my foot inevitably falls asleep and my thoughts are just a chaotic scramble of squirrels in a sack. It's not so much a spiritual journey as a cascade of anxieties about whether you remembered to latch the chicken coop. She tells you to meditate. Clear your mind, she says, her voice a low hum. You tell her you did. You tried meditating, and what actually happened was you got so focused on not thinking that you lost your balance, fell sideways into an empty bucket, and got stuck. No one helped for at least 3 minutes because they thought it was some advanced part of the meditative process. Your cousin even whispered, "Look, he's embracing the void." The only thing you were embracing was the cold, unyielding reality of galvanized steel. And still, you lie here. The root has dissolved, leaving a lingering bitterness that feels philosophical. The incense smoke has now made your eyes water, which you suppose is a form of cleansing. The memory of the shouting sheep echoes faintly in your mind. The herbalist's methods are a mystery wrapped in an enigma, tied together with a piece of twine that probably has some kind of magical property you're not using correctly. Maybe you're supposed to chew the twine. At this point, you wouldn't be surprised. You close your eyes, deciding to try your grandmother's approach one more time, minus the bucket. You try to find the space between breath and waking. You breathe in, you breathe out. You think about the damp hay smell. You think about the smug-looking goat. You think about the thieving mouse. Is this what she means by the soul stretching? It feels more like the soul is pacing back and forth, making a to-do list for tomorrow. Maybe the secret isn't in the roots or the teas or the incense at all. Maybe it's just about surviving the night with your sanity mostly intact, ready to face another day of questionable herbal remedies and judgmental wildlife. And maybe, just maybe, that's its own kind of peace. Or maybe you just need a new pillow and a lock for your bedroom door. Yes, definitely a lock. You sigh, long and slow, and your breath steams into the cold air like the first line of a folk song about disappointment. No, you are not asleep. You're not even close to restful. You are profoundly, stubbornly awake and filled with a strange kind of root and confusion. Outside, the wind picks up, rustling through the eaves like it's searching for something. It dropped on its way through the night. A single bleat comes from the goat in the yard. He's probably still wearing that lavender sachet you tied around his neck like a fashion statement. And he's definitely sleeping better than you are. You shift again on your cot, trying to find a position that doesn't involve at least one of your joints crying out in protest. Your neck pops with a dry crack. Your shoulder makes a sound that can only be described as medieval. The smell of yesterday's incense still clings to your hair like a bad decision you keel on to wash out. You close your eyes one more time, telling yourself you'll drift off soon. And maybe you will. Maybe. Right after you finish this root you're chewing on, across the room, a floorboard creaks. It's a sound both tragic and suspiciously crunchy. It's your uncle. He's kneeling in the corner, looking for all the world like he's proposing to the wall. He doesn't flinch at the sound. His hands are clasped. His eyes are shut tight, and he is praying with the quiet intensity of someone who believes heaven is just a bit hard of hearing. He always starts with forgiveness, a broad, sweeping apology for the day's shortcomings. Then he detours into a general plea for health, before getting very, very specific. Last night it was his knees, a detailed account of every ache and twinge. Tonight, it's probably his neighbor's goat, the one that keeps eating his prize-winning cabbages. Or maybe it's the mole on his back that he recently decided might be prophetic. You've learned not to ask what he's praying for. You've also learned that he doesn't care if you do. His conversation is with someone else entirely. On the other side of the small room, your sister whispers to herself. She's drawing on the floorboards with a charcoal stub she pulled from the hearth. It's still warm to the touch. She traces these looping, intricate symbols and writes down half-remembered dreams in the soot, as if she's negotiating with something that lives under the bed. She does this a lot during what she calls the second waking. It's this strange, liminal space between two halves of the night, a time when the world feels thin and the rules don't quite apply. No one ever stops her. Frankly, No one wants to find out what happens if you interrupt her mid-schedule. One time, she drew a perfect circle around your cousin, and he couldn't speak for 2 solid hours afterward. He still insists it was just a coincidence, that he'd simply lost his voice. You're not so convinced. You saw the look in his eyes when he tried to step outside the line. And then, another sound joins the strange symphony of the night. Someone outside is reciting a psalm. You can't tell who it is from the voice alone. It's just a low, rhythmic chanting that seems to seep right through the walls, like steam. It's the kind of voice that has given up on the idea of sleep and has decided to bargain with eternity instead. The cadence is slow, familiar. A line, a pause. Another line, another pause. A long, drawn-out exhale. It could be the priest practicing his sermons for the coming dawn. Or maybe it's the miller's wife. She once claimed she saw an angel hovering in a cloud of flour in the mill. It turned out to be the cat, who had fallen into a sack of ash. But still, she tells the story. The memory of what she thought she saw was powerful enough. In a night like this, it doesn't really matter who it is. It's just another soul, awake and wrestling with the silence. This is the second waking. It's not just an inability to sleep. It's an event, a shared, unspoken ritual for the restless. Your family, each in their own corner, performing their own private ceremony. Your uncle bargains with the heavens for his knees. Your sister draws maps for the shadows. And you lie here, listening, feeling the strange, thrumming energy of it all. Is this what happens when we're supposed to be dreaming? Does the world get a little weird, a little fragile? Maybe sleep isn't a rest. Maybe it's a curtain we pull back, and for a few hours, we just agree not to look at what's on the other side. But for some of us, the curtain doesn't always stay closed. You think about your ancestors. Did they have these second wakings too? Did they lie awake in their own cold rooms, listening to the wind and the prayers and the secret whispers? This feeling of being suspended in time, it feels ancient, like a trait passed down through generations. This inherited restlessness. It's a strange kind of comfort to think you're not the first to experience this. You're just the latest in a long line of people who couldn't sleep. The root you're chewing is bitter, earthy. It's supposed to help, to calm the mind. So far, it's just making your tongue numb. But the act of doing something, of trying to fix the wakefulness, is its own kind of ritual. It's your personal prayer, your charcoal sigil, an attempt to impose some order on the chaos of the sleepless mind. Your uncle's prayers soften, becoming a low, continuous murmur. Your sister's charcoal scratches have gone silent. Maybe she's finished her negotiations for the night. The chanting from outside fades, the final psalm dissolving into the wind. The house settles into a new, deeper quiet. It's different from the earlier quiet. This one feels less tense, more accepting. You shift one last time. The mattress rustles. This time, no joints complain. The incense smell is still there, but it feels less like a mistake and more like just a part of the room now. You close your eyes. The bitterness of the root is still on your tongue. The sounds of the night have become a strange, familiar lullaby. And maybe, just maybe, you'll drift off soon. You roll onto your side and pull the blanket tighter around your shoulders. It's scratchy and smells faintly of cabbage, but it's yours. And what if soup had legs? You close your eyes and try counting sheep. One of them is smoking a pipe and judging your posture. The incense sputters and goes out with a hiss, as if even it has lost patience with you. You watch the last tendril of smoke rise, twist, and vanish into the thatch. You consider lighting another, but the last one made your sister sneeze herself awake, and she threw her boot across the room in retaliation. It hit your cousin. He hasn't spoken to anyone since, which some call peaceful and others call ominous. You chew another root, just to prove a point. It still tastes like betrayal and wood shavings, but now your jaw is numb, and your stomach is beginning to suspect you've made a mistake. The herbalist says to give it time. She also once said nettles could cure heartbreak, but all it did was give you a rash in places best left unspoken. You remember when she first came to the village. She wore a cloak made of patchwork moss and had a bag full of dried things that crinkled when she moved. Everyone said she was a gift. You suspect she's more of a long-term experiment. She talks to bees, not in a metaphorical way. You've seen her whisper to them, like they're old friends. And once, one whispered back. You don't know what it said, but she nodded like it had made an excellent point about the moon. A floorboard creaks as someone rolls over. You freeze, waiting to see if anyone wakes. No one does. The room settles again into the hush of shared discomfort. The candle flickers, then steadies. You consider trying one of the other remedies the herbalist left, some kind of ointment you're supposed to rub on your temples, made from fermented elderberry and crushed beetle wings. You opened it once. It smelled like boiled socks and regret. You'll pass. Your stomach growls loudly. You're not even hungry. But apparently your internal organs have decided this is the right time to remind you that you once denied them a third helping of stew. You wonder if the herbalist has a tea for guilt or indigestion, or both. The snoring from the other side of the room picks up in volume. It's a rhythmic, grating sound, like someone trying to saw through a log with a rusty spoon. It's your uncle. He can sleep through anything: storms, arguments, the occasional wandering goat that finds its way into the hut. You're envious. His mind is a quiet, empty field. Yours is a bustling marketplace where vendors are shouting about philosophical poultry and the structural integrity of soup. You try to focus on your breathing, just like the herbalist suggested. Inhale peace, exhale chaos. But the peace gets stuck somewhere in your throat, and the chaos just circles back, stronger than before. Now it's brought friends, like the memory of that time you tried to compliment the bakeress wife on her new hat and accidentally told her it looked like a sad, furry pancake. She hasn't sold you bread since. Just glares. You shift again, the straw mattress rustling beneath you. It's lumpy, and you're pretty sure something is living in the corner near your feet. You've named it Bartholomew. You haven't seen Bartholomew, but you can hear him scurrying when the room is quiet. You've left him crumbs of cheese as a peace offering. He seems to appreciate it. Or maybe that was just your cousin, who's still not talking. It's hard to tell. The moon peeks through a crack in the shutters, a sliver of silver light that lands right on your face. You close your eyes tighter. The light feels accusatory, as if the moon itself is disappointed in your inability to sleep. You imagine the moon sighing, shaking its cratered head, and muttering to the stars about how you're just not trying hard enough. You could get up, you could go outside and stare at the sky, but then you'd have to navigate the obstacle course of sleeping bodies. And last time you tried that, you tripped over your aunt's leg, and she reflexively kicked you in the shin. She apologized the next morning, but you still have the bruise. It's probably better to stay put, trapped in this purgatory of semi-consciousness. You try another mental exercise. You picture a small, wooden box. You're supposed to put all your worries inside it, close the lid, and lock it tight. But your worries are too big. One of them, shaped suspiciously like your unpaid debt to the blacksmith, refuses to even bend. Another one, the fear that you'll never figure out how to properly churn butter, just keeps phasing through the walls of the box. It's a useless box. You need an industrial-sized, worry-proof vault, with a moat, and maybe a dragon. The cabbage smell is getting stronger. Or maybe you're just imagining it. Maybe your entire reality is a cabbage-scented hallucination, brought on by a lack of sleep and too many questionable roots. The herbalist would probably have a theory about that. She'd nod sagely, her mossy cloak rustling, and offer you a poultice made from mud and forgotten dreams. You decide to embrace the weirdness. If you can't sleep, you might as well have some fun with it. You start inventing backstories for the snoring sounds in the room. Your uncle's saw-like snore is actually him communicating with ancient tree spirits. Your sister's soft whistling is a secret code she's sending to a league of squirrel spies. Your cousin's unnerving silence. He's clearly achieved enlightenment and is currently floating a few inches above his mattress. This is much more entertaining. Your brain, finally given a task it enjoys, starts to build an entire narrative. The squirrel spies are planning a heist to steal the baker's secret recipe for his famous nut bread. The tree spirits are warning of an impending invasion of territorial badgers. And your cousin, the enlightened one, is the only person who can stop it. But he's sworn a vow of non-interference. It's a classic narrative dilemma. You're just about to introduce a roguish, charming fox as a potential ally when your stomach growls again. This time, with the force of a minor earthquake. Everyone in the room stirs. Someone groans. Your sister mutters something about stew in her sleep. The moment is broken. The squirrel spies have scattered. The tree spirits have fallen silent. Even your enlightened cousin seems to have dropped back onto his mattress with a soft thud. You sigh. Maybe the ointment made of boiled socks and regret wasn't such a bad idea after all. At this point, you'd try almost anything. You stare up at the thatched roof, tracing the patterns of shadow and moonlight. You think about tomorrow. You'll have to get up before dawn. Feed the chickens, the ones who have started asking for worker rights. You're tanned. Then spend the day trying to fix the fence that the goats are constantly testing. It's a simple life. It's a good life. But right now, in the dead of night, it feels monumentally exhausting. A wave of drowsiness finally washes over you. It's faint, but it's there. A tiny flicker of hope. You hold on to it, nurturing it like a fragile flame. You don't dare think about soup, or sheep, or even the baker's wife's pancake hat. You focus on the feeling, the gentle pull towards oblivion. Your breathing evens out. The sounds of the room, the snores and the rustling, begin to fade into a distant hum. Just as your mind starts to drift, a single, clear thought pops into your head. Did the herbalist say the beetle wings should be crushed, or were they supposed to be whole? And just like that, you're awake. Wide awake. You groan and pull the scratchy, cabbage-scented blanket over your head. It's going to be a long night.